All right, welcome back to this week's episode of MVP Real Estate Podcast. I apologize. Season 3, episode 19. We have Steve Prefontaine. We are guessing out of Boston. Correct.
It's Chris. Steve is the runner.
I apologize, Chris.
All good.
My fault. But thanks for coming on the show. Thanks for giving us time. We are very excited to have you on the show.
Right. I'm happy to be here. Let's dive in. Hopefully we'll impart some nuggets while we're chatting away.
Awesome. I always start off the show with getting a little bit of background from our guests. So can you give us a little 30-second, 1-minute kind of background of where you came from and how you got to the wonderful world of real estate?
Yeah, I'm from New England, so I can talk fast. I'll go, this month is 32 years that I've been in the biz. So I'll do a thumbnail sketch. Early 90s, we built homes on infill lots, onesie, twosies. But without knowing it, I was in my 20s, we were naive. So I would go to the homeowner, the landowner, and all the vendors, all the lumber supplies, everyone, and I'd ask them all to wait till the end when we pre-sold the home and closed on it. Even thinking now, I don't know if I would do that, but it worked. The economy supported that. Everybody waited for their money like 120 days, which was crazy. Then I bought Realty Executives franchise in mid-90s, sold it to Coldwell Banker in 2000. And then from 2000 to 2008, I had my own investments going, and I also coached people throughout US and Canada. But then the debacle hit in 08. So that's what kind of turned my world upside down in a big way, financially, mentally, it was stressful. That, though, was the impetus to do what we're doing today, which was change everything to creative real estate. I just was brain dead from banks coming after me, and because I had signed personally, right? That's what I thought you did. I had good credit, so I did it. Never do it again, and that's what we do today. When I say we have a family company in New England, son-in-law, my daughter, my wife's always involved, and we buy homes creatively, like we'll probably chat about, and then we teach that all around North America, mostly United States, where we don't just teach it or sell something. We actually do deals in the trenches with students, so we're revenue sharing. So we're in it together, right to the end zone. And that's it's the best way to learn, in my opinion. So that's what we're doing. And that was, 2 or 3 minutes of 32 years.
That was a fast 32 years. In my short stint in customer service, when I got put on the Northeast team, I knew I had to pick up my day. I had some extra coffee so I could keep up with everybody. Yeah. At first, I thought everybody was super rude because I would have somebody call and they're like, I need X, Y, Z, and then they'd hang up the phone. And I went to my manager. I was like, I think everybody in the Northeast just hates me. They're like, no, they've got their business. They're going to get it done. They're going to get off the phone. And I was like, all right, I gotta kick up a gear here.
Yeah. That's always my disclosure at the events. And tomorrow I run a workshop. There'd be a few hundred people on it, but that's my pre-disclosure.
No, it's good. I will try to stay with you as much as I can. I'm going to tune up back to a few years ago. Yeah. So you started with your own real estate. Do you still continue to buy and sell real estate, or have you switched to now coaching full time?
No, we do still. Yeah, I think it's important for a lot of reasons. One, creative is always there's no one deal the same. So I don't get bored. As soon as I get bored, I'd probably stop, but it's never, because all the deals are different with the ways we buy. And then I love working with my son and son-in-law. So that makes it nice too. And then it's nice because then we keep our finger on the pulse. And if a change comes up or a law, or we screw up, which happens, obviously, then we bring it to the community, the Wicked Smart community, and we go, hey guys, here's another lesson, and we tweak the contracts or whatever we got to do, and everybody wins.
Yeah. No, that is awesome. It's super cool that you can pull in the family with it too. Makes the team a lot stronger.
Yeah, for sure.
So if you can think back to, let's go from your beginnings where you used to personally sign for all your loans.
Yeah.
And then you switched into getting creative financing. That's a financing option that not many people know of or take advantage of. So if you can think back to your beginning of how you were going to get into that.
Yeah.
What was your mindset shift, or how did you gather resources enough to think okay, this is a reasonable avenue for us to take? It wasn't very popular back when you had started.
Right.
So what was that gear shift in your head of all right, this is the direction we're going to go. I feel confident. I feel safe, secure. And then obviously you have to go and meet these people that can do the creative financings.
Yeah, a couple things. First is, I agree it's not as mainstream back then, but if you research it, I read the what's the book, the Vanderbilt story by Anderson Cooper. It was about his family, but I read it only because I'm not necessarily a fan of his, but I read it because in Newport, Rhode Island is where the Vanderbilts and all those mansions were built. So I thought that was cool. It's right across the way here. And he talked about in that book how his family did owner financing in lease. They called it master lease purchase in the 1600s before bank. So it's not like when a seller says to me, oh, I never heard. I go, okay, well, listen, it's been around a long time before me and you. So that's number one. Number two, the impetus for me was I said I was brain dead. That's an understatement. I got beat up pretty badly. And so I almost didn't go back into real estate. And I said, if I was to, what would be the criteria? And one of the criteria was I'm not signing personally ever again, because a banker has to do their job. No offense, but they got to come after you, right? The banks and the attorneys. So I wasn't going to put myself in that spot anymore. So you compare that, going to sleep at night worrying about that, to midst of COVID, like peak of COVID, we had 72, our family, not the students, had 72 properties we were carrying under terms, creative real estate. I didn't have a headache at all because I had buyers in the home that take care of the homes with a couple exceptions. And I was not on one loan personally. That's dramatically different than pre-08. Dramatically. Yeah. I just do not stay up worrying about that stuff anymore.
Awesome.
Interesting.
And you said you've got buyers in the home. So these homes are they leased to purchase, or how are you?
Yeah, they so 3 ways you buy only in creative. Us. Lease purchase is one. My preferred is to own it. So owner financing and subject to existing financing. Those are the only 3 ways we buy. Of course, there's offshoots, right, of all that, but those 3 ways. And then we put in the home a rent-to-own buyer who is a true buyer. And where everybody screws this up, and they talk about it openly on podcasts. They'll say, oh, I put a buyer in my home and I don't care if they cash out or not. I'll just put another one in, collect another check. Morally and ethically, it's awful, because we want to set the buyers up to win. My son, Nick, has been handling that since, oh gosh, almost 10 years now. And he's very strict on who he puts in. They're a true buyer. They maybe from COVID went and started their own business, and now they need time, right? The bank calls it seasoning, 2 years. Mm-hmm. Or they changed jobs, they need 2 years. Or the rates just went up and kicked everybody to the sidewalk, the buyers. And now they need time to save for down payment. So these are all good buyers. If you talk to any mortgage broker, guys, we have one in our community, does lots of loans and has for a lot of years. He said 17% of his applications right now are being qualified. That's it, 17.
Wow.
So what about the other 83%? They're not all great, but in that pool, there are some great buyers. That's who we put in homes. And that's why during COVID, did we have some? Yes, 4 of them did. Took advantage of the whole thing going on and would, federally, and went, oh, I have to pay these guys. But they also lost their option to buy. So we eventually got their butt out of there. But everyone else, can you imagine if you're a landlord had 72 homes, you'd be a little stressed during COVID. We weren't.
That's really nice.
What is that, like 6 or 7% only that you had to worry about out of the 72, something like that?
It's 2 to 10, Dan, actually. 2 to 10 is our rate. So you're spot on. It's about what happened. 2 to 10 default rate. And why is that? Because of COVID, that was one thing. But life happens, right? I mean, we've had divorce, death, all kinds of stuff. And it just happens. It's sad on some occasions, but it just happens. And that's not a bad default rate. I don't know what the government loans are, but I think they're higher than that for default rate. I don't know.
I would imagine they'd be higher than that. Yeah.
Yeah, absolutely.
And that, like the default rate, yes, it's a business and it's not a good stat you want, but the weird thing about real estate, and I always mention this to people, like, yes, it is a business, but you're dealing with people, and people have issues, and you never know what's going to happen. And with our purchasing and our kind of avenue that we go down, we go through like auctions and decrepit properties. We like to pick up the worst property on a really nice block and fix it up.
Yep.
Sometimes they go to auctions for all different reasons. And sometimes you have to talk and deal with old homeowners who are going through medical problems. It's no fault of their own. They just can't keep up with everything, and that's where it all falls.
Yeah.
And you try to make it as personal as possible and as professional as possible, but you try to blend the person and the business, and sometimes it gets a little hairy.
All we do to that point, Marcus, is people say, how do you convince them? Like this building that I'm sitting in, I bought owner financing. It closed last week. I sold it, but I bought it without going through commercial underwriting and all the crap you go through. And so you don't convince them. What do? You do one of two things. You either solve a problem, to your point there, or you help them accomplish a goal that otherwise they weren't getting from conventional market. In the case of owner financing, for example, this building was an example of it. We talk with owners who are free and clear. There's no mortgage. So different from a sub 2 deal where you're buying it and they're usually stressed.
Yeah.
A free and clear is like, okay, well, I want my number because I don't need the money tomorrow. So I want my number. He wanted his number, this guy. I said, okay, I'll give you a number if I get my term. And we negotiated out a win-win. And I did very well on it, but I also had a 20-year term. I didn't have to sell it. I bought it in 18. I just got a really good offer and moved on. But the point is, when you're dealing with sub 2 deals or lease purchase. Sometimes it's you solving a problem, stress, financial, and other. And when you're dealing with free and clear, you're helping them accomplish a goal. They're not stressed. They presumably would have taken their money out if they were stressed. So
Yeah.
two different avatars there, and it's nice to have the mix in your business.
Yeah. And do you know going into a deal, with all of your due diligence on your property, do you know going in it's going to be subject to, or that there is financing on it? Or is that kind of like, hey, are you interested in selling? And then you open up that door and you talk to them a little bit, fact find from there.
Yeah, good question. Because when we pick up the phone, let's say Dan's a lead, I might know from my virtual assistant calling him first that he has a mortgage or not, and usually they're accurate. And it might know his reason for selling, but I don't know yet if he has a mortgage, if he'll be a lease purchase or a sub 2. I don't know yet. Or there's one of my students calls it a hybrid. He's in New Hampshire. He's done 5 deals where there was debt, but they wanted out. They didn't want a lease purchase. They wanted out. So he also tacked on some owner financing to that, which was no payments, no interest for like 5 years. So that's a hybrid. All these deals can be mixed and blended too. You don't usually know till you get in there. If they're free and clear, am I going for 100%? Yeah, I want to go do owner financing. Yeah, if they will. When there's a stress problem with finances, or they're behind in 2 payments, do I kind of know I'm going sub 2? Yeah, they need relief tomorrow.
Yeah.
And I'm not relieving them if I can't own it, so.
Yeah. And that obviously comes with time going through these deals. You can kind of recognize where it's going to lead and where it's going to go.
Yeah, I'll give you an example. For new students, Brian O'Neill's a superstar in our communities in Chicago, and he came in November 19, like right before COVID. His first 8 or 9 deals, he did lease purchase. Well, it's because he was brand new, he never did houses before. He was an elevator salesman for literally 17, 18 years. But he knew one thing: I'm not taking title. The agreements are built in with $10 deposit. Like, this sounds easy, right? Until such time he understood after 8 or 9 of these, and he built up our 3 payday system, like almost 900 grand. Like, nobody would feel bad for him, but he figured out, wow, I want to own these. And he said to me at that point, I'm not doing anything else I can do sub 2 or owner financing now, because so many advantages and so much control and so much more profitable.
Yeah. And that is it's a little niche of real estate that a lot of people on the sell side and the buy side aren't really comfortable with. I know I've approached a couple people I brought up owner financing, and I didn't really know about subject to at the time, but I brought up like a land contract or owner financing, and that kind of killed the deal. They felt like it was kind of scammy. And that just comes with educating them. And at that point, early on in my career, I wasn't educated enough to give them the info.
They came across like, oh, I don't know about this. So it's usually their confidence or lack of in the caller. That's all that is. And you just said it, you were new. That's all it is. Like, I just don't get that, right? And
yeah,
the new students will call us with that stuff. They're, oh, they hung up on me. They told me that this because you used the wrong script, and you scream that you're not confident.
Yeah. And I'll admit that one early on in the career, it was an option that I don't know. I couldn't even remember exactly what was said, but that if they were interested in that, we could explore the option. And at that point, that it kind of derailed the conversation on that one.
I'll give you some nuggets, Marcus and Dan, and then the listeners can literally try this tomorrow. People try to give a seminar like, oh, I got to teach them, I got to tell them about it. No, you don't. You don't do anything. You got to know where, when, why. Where, like if I call an expired, geez, where were you going if it's sold? They had plans, right? Expired list or FSBO. Where are you going if it's sold? Like, if you went outside today and you talked to your neighbor, they had a for sale sign. You wouldn't go give them a seminar. You go, hey, where you going? Oh, cool. Why? All right, when do you need to be there? That's what you'd say. So that's what you need to say to a seller. You find out those 3 things, you know if they're going to be a fit. And then what if it doesn't happen? Like, what's your plan B? Normal conversation that you would have with a neighbor. When you do those 4 things, you kind of know if they're motivated or not, because they just blurted everything out.
Yeah. And I like all those questions were open-ended. I was watching through your Instagram, and you had a couple of reels where it was like avoiding the yes or no questions because they'll shoot it down. And with me and Dan, we actually worked prior to MVP in sales. And that was one thing that we never did was yes or no questions. Because at least gets it.
Choice either, because that's kind of a yes or no, right?
It is, yeah. But always asking the why and having them explain. In avoiding either the yes or the no right away, because then it stops the conversation. And when you were having that dialogue with the theoretical neighbor, it was always open-ended questions so they could answer and keep talking. So first tidbit I got from you right there was the open-ended question. So
open-ended, and after you answer, here's another one if we're on scripts, right? In case someone wants to run with some nuggets. see, they'll ask a question like, well, how does that benefit me? Or, and the student will take it defensively. I can't wait till they ask that. It means they're interested, trying to dig and figure you out. And so when they ask that, answer the question, move on. Don't answer the question and give a 40-minute seminar. Like I literally say, stop your buyer seminar or your seller seminar, answer the question, act like it's not there anymore, and go to the next one. They'll forget it. They don't dwell on it. You dwell on it because you're not confident. That's all it is.
Yeah. And these scripts that you're referencing for your students, are these scripts that you've kind of tailored through your conversations, through your personal experience, and then expand them into the class?
Yeah, we just recently, so we have a course that we update nonstop. Like it's a living, breathing thing online. And at our recent event last week, we had our twice a year event, and on stage with the top 3 coaches, and they did script work. We did call it script school, and it was by far the most popular thing we did. And then we announced that all those newer simplified scripts are getting put into the course, and people were ecstatic. So that, yeah, it's what we constantly do.
Yeah. And I like that. I think some of that stuff was on your website, if I'm not mistaken, not the actual templates of them, but explanations.
They might be.
I thought they were, and I glanced briefly at those, but it was when I got into it's called Wicked Smart Academy, correct? Is the educational piece?
That's where all the stuff lives, yeah.
Yeah, awesome. Where did you come up with the name on that one? Because it sticks out in my head. I like it.
My wife thought of Smart Real Estate Coach back in like 13 or 14, whenever I launched officially, when people kept just asking me for help. And then over the years, because it's New England, we've been trying to get the Wicked Smart. Thought we never could. Got a trademark, got the LLC. So we finally got it all done and got it trademarked and ran with it just because of New England.
Nice.
Oh, I like it. The ties to the East Coast.
Yeah.
And when did that start? I'm trying to connect
the Wicked Smart change. We rebranded to that probably before COVID, 18-ish maybe.
Okay. Awesome. And how have you built that from like numbers wise, or obviously you're putting on seminars now, so you've gotten growth, which is awesome. And just speaking to you for the last 20 minutes, I can see why. So where has that gone in terms of your membership, and how has the growth been over the years with that?
Yeah, we've grown every year. I mean, my first year, I think we just announced this at one of the private things. I think we did like 14 grand in sales, and back in 13 or 14. We hit Inc. 5,000 fastest growing companies in US the last 3 years. We'll go surpass 5 million this year. It's because we're in the trenches and we care. When people come to events, they go, oh, wow, yeah, it's what you said you guys do. You know, we just care. It's family oriented. And I mean the coaches too, not just our family. Like everyone's got that family vibe there. Everybody cares. The amount of deals and help that went on at that event, for example, was through the roof. Like the coaches are there and they see you, they want to help you. They're doing calls for you to your sellers. That stuff doesn't exist at events. It just doesn't. It's usually fluff.
Yeah. I've been to a lot of those fluff seminars where they just get you emotionally riled up, and then they're like, all right, see ya. And then it just slowly tapers.
You and I and Dan, we've all been to seminars where you know what you're doing there. They're going to pitch, right? So we don't. It's probably our style, like just the blunt style. We talk the whole time. I say, here's some resources if you want them. If you don't, we're going either way. Here's the resources want to come, right? It's not about pitching. Yeah.
Now, with you and your career, now that you're doing real estate actively and you're coaching, which one do you prefer better? Because I feel like your time is kind of split.
Yeah, they're different. I like pieces of both. Okay, so in our company, as it grew, my son-in-law loves scaling and meeting the people and doing the teams. My son loves doing the buyers. I love just getting in the trenches and doing deals. So I coach the higher level students, and now they put me back in. The whole team thought it was best that I talk with the coaches, because then they can help them do more deals, right? So I like that stuff. I don't prefer, frankly, building and scaling. My son-in-law loves it. So it's a nice organic mix.
Nice. That is awesome. And I have to backtrack a little bit with my next question, because when Dan jumped on, we're listening to the Bigger Pockets podcast, is the one that I started listening to that got me into real estate. Are you familiar with that podcast at all? Okay. So they had a guest on that talked all about subject to, and he only does subject to deals. And I had no idea what it was. So I started Googling. I find him on social media. That subject to, for me, when I first learned about it, seemed risky for me. And I couldn't understand how I could get a buyer on board with that technique. Do you have like some keystone or like some objections that stick out in your head when you talk to buyers about subject to, or this can go into land contracts or owner financing, that always come up that you kind of coach your real estate investors to answer?
Do you mean the seller side? Trying to talk to them about it?
Yeah, as they would sell. Yes, correct.
Yeah, got it. So us buying. No one thing. No, it goes back to why are they selling, and if I can fix it, right?
Yeah.
Let me give you some examples. I think it's always best. Set a theory. Recently, near here, there was a couple that my son-in-law found this one that had a nice house, like towards Cape Cod. It's a resort area. And they must have watched HGTV and they fixed the house up and they leveraged all their credit cards to do it. And it was in good shape, but then they got divorced. And one was on the title, one was on the loan. So that was split. It was not amicable. So that was split. So they were like $4,100 in arrears. They couldn't sell it with a realtor. So what was the fix? If they went one more month, they were going to be in pre-foreclosure. So the conversation was super easy. It was, we can do A, B, and C. If it's of interest, let us know. Like there's no convincing, right? And we can act fast. The realtor already tried you for 6 months. You want to list it again? You go through the whole process again. So that was easy. When it's free and clear, again, it's like the building here. The building I bought here, why did he do it? Tax planning. He was free and clear. Tax planning and then estate planning. He since passed away. I think in hindsight, he knew something was up. So instead of leaving his wife and his son a building and possibly a headache, he left them a cash flow stream. If you think about it.
Yeah.
Now again, we closed this last week, which was a surprise. I wasn't going to do it, and she got a nice chunk of change, right? Because we paid her off. But everyone's different. There's no one thing like, oh yeah, here's the bullet. Just find out where, why, and when, and that'll give you your answer if you can fix it or not. Like if you say to me, Marcus, we're on a call and you're the seller, and you go, yeah, I got like 200 grand equity. I'm in no hurry. But when I sell, I'm moving my money to Florida and I'm going to buy a house. I got to do that for my kids. Like you're not a candidate for me.
Yeah.
So I say, just, okay, Marcus, if that doesn't work out, then I'm your plan B. So right away, I know if he or she needs his money, it's not for me.
Yeah. And when you started with real estate, it's very, very hard to say it's not for me, because you want every deal and you'll take everything and you'll try to make it work. Where with you being in it for decades, understand that when a deal is in my bucket and in my scope, it's good. And if it's not, I just have to leave it.
Yeah. And on top of that, when you look at the 3 payday system that we trademarked, they're not small deals. Like I'll give you an average across the country. 45 grand is a low, and that's like low end areas. I know of an outlier in Arizona, and she does low end deals, but it goes up to $250,000. One of our coaches is in Florida. 2 of our coaches are in California, high end. And there's other students out there. Well, their deals are like 100 grand deals all day long, every day for all 3 paydays. So, I mean, seriously, to every listener, how many of those do you need to do? You're not going to find 10 a month, but how many do you need to do a year to go, wow, I got money now, because you do the money cash flow, and I get long term, I get all this in over 5 years, I can already see it. That's pretty cool. So you don't need to be like doing 40, 50, 60 deals a year. You need to do a good dozen.
Yeah. And then within your coaching, do you coach your investors into how to prospect for these people?
Oh yeah, A through Z.
Okay.
Yeah, we provide a lead source. Where are you going to get these leads? CRMs, everything we do personally. That's why it's important we're in the trenches. We just relay it to them. It's all. Show them our deals, help them with their deals. We all do it together.
That was
That's
one of the
awesome.
questions I was going to ask is what's the acquisition process? Like, where do you find the deals, or like, is it expired listings, or you just have a lead generator that you use?
Yeah, we do. So there's one lead. There's a bunch of lead sources, but our main one that we've literally had since 13, Dan, is going to provide every day a live feed of expired listings for sale by owner, for rent by owner. Now, if you're in an area where, for whatever reason, either your goals are super aggressive, you're not getting enough leads to accomplish your goals, because I know how many you'll need by you telling me your goals, or you just are in a sparse area where you go, hey, Chris, I'm not getting many FSBOs or expired, like it's not happening. Okay, now we'll go outside that and go, all right, what kind of niched list do we need? I love free and clear. And I love out of state and free and clear in particular. And I would call those lists all day long because they're a pleasure to deal with. Especially after COVID, by the way, you get these people that own these properties, they're like, I'm done. And so those are great lists. And there's plenty of people. Look, 1/3 of the properties in the US, ballpark, are free and clear. 1/3. Not a bad pool to fish in.
Yeah. And they're probably very, very willing sellers too. Like
they're
you were
super
saying.
open. They get it.
Yeah.
This guy goes, This guy for this building goes, Chris, I'm into math. I find this fascinating. Now he was like 71 at the time. So, you know, they did something right to be free and clear in their life, right?
Right.
They tend to think it's pretty cool. Give me my price. I'll wait. There's a lot of ego with the price, I think. Like they're fine. So like, I just want my number. Okay. Then I need my term.
Yeah. And that is the same thing that Pace says. He's like, I'll give you your number, but I need the terms.
Yep.
Cool
stuff.
That was
sorry, I didn't mean to interject. One more thing. Like, so when you said you have your 3 financing types: lease, purchase, owner financing, or subject to.
Yep. When
you have the subject to property, do you then just like rent it out and place a tenant? Like what do you do with the property once you have it that like just
99% of them, Dan, not to get too advanced, is, and I can make a couple comments on the advanced, but 99% of them are rent to own.
Okay.
Where we set that success rate up, we have them set to win. So that's that failure rate of 2 to 10, where if you bring anyone else on this show, some of the big names everybody knows, they will say to you that they convert only 2 to 20% success rate. That I feel bad for the buyers doing that. That's awful. You're setting up to fail. So we're in a complete inverse relationship. It's not easy. It's more work, but they got to thank you for it.
Okay.
Yeah.
Makes sense.
Now,
so then you set the
Sorry.
terms and obviously the price with the subject to or the free and clears, and then they basically get to walk away. They just receive whatever the terms are that you stipulate. You own the property.
Yeah.
You then place the rent to own.
Correct.
Third party. Okay.
Yep. And then we, third party on purpose for liability and success reasons. There's a third party that will go through if it's credit repair they need or seasoning they need, whatever it is.
Yeah.
Then there's a debt to income, a DTI statement they sign. So there's a plan. Like, okay, Marcus, you're our new buyer. Listen, I'm not your landlord. You're going to treat the house. You're going to behave like you're an owner. You're going to capture equity or lose equity as an owner. You're a buyer. You just don't have a mortgage yet. That's the conversation we have. And then they know their plan is to get mortgage ready. If they screw it up, they didn't go to the plan.
Yeah.
Yeah.
That's why we're pretty strict with it.
So one, I don't want to get too much into your process. Do you then ask those rent to owners? Do you ask them to put like a down payment down so that they have something into the
Gotta.
Okay.
Payday. There's 3 paydays we trademark. Payday 1 is they're putting a down payment down because remember they're a buyer.
Yep.
So they came through COVID. They left corporate America. A lot of these people are coming to us, and they went and started their own business. And then they go, "Oh, I can't get a loan." Like they don't realize that the bank needs usually 2 years of seasoning.
Yeah.
So if they were ready, they probably have the down payment, right? And if they don't have a down payment, they weren't a buyer. They weren't ready. So payday 1, down payment. Payday 2, the delta between what I'm paying on the underlying debt or to the seller, like with this building, it was the seller, and what I'm paying my tenant buyer in the house is a delta there. It's like $300 to $1,000 a month per property. At that peak I told you about, we were up to like 28 grand a month just in net paydays.
Nice.
Try to get that spitting out with an investment in the bank. It's a lot of money. It's a lot of money. It's probably, I don't know, 10 million, whatever it is. And then payday 3 is really cool. Payday 3 is throughout the term of the project of the property, there's principal pay down happening, whether it's an underlying loan or free and clear, it's all principal. Well, at the end, that all accrues to you. You're getting all that out of it, and you didn't pay it. It was paid by technically your buyer, and then any markup. So when I said some of these higher end deals like 100 grand, 200 grand, the payday 3 is pretty hefty, especially on owner financing, because you're getting hammered principal.
Yeah.
Okay.
I had a question on, because this rent to own stuff, I know my dad had dabbled in it a couple years ago. I still have all of his literature and his training courses for rent to own.
That's
it's
awesome.
somewhere where I would like to go, because with all my tenants, like a good day for me is if you are leaving and you bought a house, like that's a plus for you. I think owning a house is better than renting.
Right.
I'm glad I could fill a need for you, but I truly want you to own your own house.
Right.
But I know that it's different from what we do, and it's a different process that I don't feel like I am knowledgeable enough to offer that, which is a good thing that you're here, because I've got so many questions, and we'll talk after the show on that one.
You could and should. I don't know how many rentals you have, but we have students that come in, and per their contract, even though we rev share, they're allowed to just bring one to the table and help them do it. And Jose recently did it in Detroit. Jose literally had a turnover that was not so pleasant, and he was going to rent it again. It'd be okay. But we created 3 paydays. I think it was like 83 grand. It's on YouTube. We put these all on YouTube. It's public knowledge, but it's a lot better than being a landlord.
Yes. The turnovers are a little bit stressful.
Yeah.
But my question with that is, where do you find your, I'll call them buyers because they're not tenants. So
Yep.
where do you get those pool of people? Because it, for the most amount, or for the 99% of people, they look on apartments.com or realtor.com for a rental, and then they just go, they sign their lease, and then they're done.
Right.
Um,
Couple things. First of all, our ads are worded something like, Nick does it, my son. Rent to own, no banks, or owner financing, sometimes with the buyers if they're strong enough, for a worthy buyer with a strong down payment. That's so it's worded. And then we used to post manually years ago to things like Craigslist, Rent Links, do it all ourselves. Now there's a company called PropSparsity. PropSparsity, when you get a property under contract, not only you plug it into the system, they mark it, they hit like 32 portals. We couldn't hit that many. The leads are like 6 times what we used to get. They do all that. Once you put the tenant buyer in there, they act like an escrow company. They collect the rent on a portal, collect the rent, pay the underlying debt, drop the difference in your account. It's all done. So you can do what you do best. Now, for years, we had to do it manually, my son and I and the team. And when that came about, PropSparsity came about like, only 2 years ago during COVID. And we latched on to them because I knew there was escrow companies that do that. And I knew there was marketing companies, but there was never one that did them both. It's plug and play.
Yeah. Because right now we have just the CRM. There's no like automation to it. So if I'm managing, or if we're managing a property that we don't own for another owner, if we've got a 6% management fee, we have to go in manually and separate the charges and link it to accounts. It doesn't just automatically do that. So that company, I wrote that down because
I was about to, but I saw you doing it.
If you hit the team, and I'll make a note here, guys, if you hit the team, tell them to get you in touch with Nathan from PropSparsity.
Nathan?
Yeah, this came about because Nathan was in our community. He's like, hey guys, you're doing a lot of work. And then he started that.
That's awesome. And I'm going to do some more research, but just one quick question on that. That's not exclusive just to rent to own, right? If I had my own tenants of houses that I'm going to keep, it doesn't need to be that.
Nope, you don't have to be in our community. You don't have to be rent to own. You can just, it can be held as a management software. Yep, management company.
Interesting. Yeah, I like that. And like you said, it's new, right? Which is why it wouldn't have come up when I was researching, because I've had the service I've had now for I think 4 years.
Yeah,
4 or 5 years now.
Go to they did a name branding, rebrand. Go to natprocessing.com. You'll find them.
Okay.
Question regarding properties that you get that are in need of repair or updating. How do you handle that?
This is a good one. So we're working on right now. They got a home inspection back that was hideous. And it's my student right in Boston, actually. So it depends, Dan. First of all, is it habitable? If it's habitable, I can still take it, not spend 10 cents on it, put it back out to the market as a rent-to-own. And why am I so confident with that? Picture all those sort of mom and pop or one-man shows that do rehab and fixer-ups. They're usually not financeable, right? They don't show all their income. They just do cash. They love rent-to-own, and you love them because they're going to fix up your property for free. So we had a student, Steve. He's now a coach. One of the better students want to become coaches. So he's out in Connecticut. This house had unfinished baths, kitchen on the like upside down plan. The thing was ugly. He closed on it sub 2 to help the seller who couldn't sell it. He then put a family in it like the next week on a rent-own contract. Went by the house the next day with his wife. There had to be 12 people there working, tiling, bathrooms, everything, because they were in that biz, but they weren't financeable. A lot of people. Remember that 83% number I said? If you threw a blanket over that 83%, there's a lot of people in there that are like contractors and they can do that stuff, and they need you and you need them. Yeah.
Do you ever worry about the owner or the new buyer doing shoddy work, or
they got to be permitted?
How do you navigate that one?
In the contract, they have to be permitted or it's not allowed. A, B, when it's that extensive, like I don't know if this kid's going to go through the deal that we just saw, the home inspection. It was pretty deep. We basically told the owner all the equity you thought you're getting 0. We're buying it sub 2 and you're gone. If he goes with it, the buyer, there'll be a list in the rent-own contract. Roughly speaking, you're going to accomplish this by this date, this by this date, because we're not giving you this price, which is priced well. It's priced to give you equity. We're not giving you that if you're just going to live there and run into the ground. Yeah. So there's a contract there. It's like a sweat equity contract.
Yeah, because my worry would be that they're not going to they'll cut some corners, not put the money in, not put the time in, and they come up short. when they can actually get financed. Have you ever ran into an issue where they came up short and couldn't get financing at the end?
I'm sure in the entire community, we have it in our team, but you got to be strict with it up front.
Yeah. And are you eyes on? Like, do you have people managing or not managing the project, but like keeping tabs on how things are going and financials?
Or just on the fixer uppers?
Just on the fixer uppers, really.
On the fixer uppers, you'd go buy on purpose for that reason, sure, to self check. But on the other ones, we don't, unless we like haven't heard from someone or a payment was late. Then we might do a drive by or even ask for a walkthrough because in the contract says we can. We just don't bug people if everything's going sweet, you know.
Yeah, yeah. Those are some of the nuances that I don't think the newbies would catch. So that's a really good.
I appreciate you asking. Some people hide that. I won't mention their name because everybody knows their name. But one of the guys in our industry said, "You're scaring people off because you tell them all this." I said, "Okay, but you're telling them in a seminar that everything's peachy." Yeah, I'm telling them this is what's going to happen. You want to do it? I'll help you do it, but it's going to happen. So in my book, there's a chapter that says what can go wrong. Where I list things. That's what made him do it. That's what made him call me. He's like, "What are you doing that for?"
Yeah, I like that.
It's not all sunshine and rainbows, man. It's right. I like the nitty gritty, real aspect of it all.
Yeah, or else they quit, Dan. Right? They go to a seminar and they go, "Oh, it's easy. I can do that." And they go out and one deal goes sideways and they quit because they think it's their fault. It's not. It's called normal. Unfortunately.
Yeah. And I think that's why I gravitated to the Bigger Pockets podcast when I first started, was because they were open about this is not easy money. This is not like set it and forget it and then you're just gonna be a millionaire.
Right. Nope, you won't. My webinar starts with, if you're looking for that, this kind of the wrong, there's no niche in real estate, frankly. If you come into real estate thinking that, and the ones that go from niche to niche to niche, this cycle is never going to end. You aren't going to have success. You've got to commit to this thing for 3 years. It's part-time's okay, but you got to commit to 3 to 7 years. Do you guys remember the name Brian Tracy? Some of the younger ones wouldn't. No. Brian Tracy's in his 80s now, but he's written, I don't know, 30, 40 books and science of selling and all kinds of psychology stuff. You'd love him, his old stuff. But I had him on my show. And he's still alive, but I had him on my show like just before COVID. And I gave him my 3-year philosophy of, you got to put blinders on for 3 years. I don't care who you're following. Go follow anyone you want, but don't deviate. And everyone usually goes, yeah, that's a good plan. He said, nope, it's not enough. He says, Chris, I'm 80-something. He's 82. He said, I've gone broke. I've made fortunes. Gone broke twice, he said. He said, you need 7 years, and here's why. And he's on my podcast. If you go back and look at it, he said, for the first 2 or 3 years, you're going to suck. I don't care what you're doing. I don't care if you're in real estate or not. For the next 2 or 3, you're going to feel like, okay, I'm adequate. I can do this. And I'm also adequately compensated. And not until the last few of the 7-year cycle will you feel like you're creating wealth. And then I thought back to all the stuff I've done, like, Jesus, he's spot on. So now I say 3 to 7 instead of 3.
That's awesome. Yeah. And it does take time because there's so many things that I've come across that I didn't think I would even get to touch on that little nuance of real estate, or this situation came up. And what's super cool is that it's never the first time. There's always somebody out there that, okay, I came upon that. This is how we fix it, or this is how I mitigated it.
In real estate, you're spot on, because here's another example of this. All you have to do is find someone who's doing what you want to do. That's it. That's all you have to do. And make sure that they morally ethically align with you and all that stuff. But like, I've been through enough cycles and even personal, drama and trauma. My son went through, it was in a coma from a snowboard accident. We had now, there's all kinds of stuff we go through. So therefore I can, on most occasions, help people who hit those speed bumps. And I had a guy, be a great guy for your show, David Nurse. He's written 2 books, young guy. David was, and still is, an MBA optimization coach. So he works one-on-one with those players that come out of college or don't even have to go to college, and they're making 8, 10, 20 million in the NBA. This is who he coaches. And he said on my show, he said, Chris, all we do, and not always, but he gave me an example. He said, all we do is we go on the internet. Okay, that's amazing. And they find people that, like, if there's a skill set he wants to work on with someone, he finds someone who mastered that. And then they either meet that person or they model that behavior. And that's all they do, is they drill that for the next 6 months or a year, whatever it is. Okay, so in real estate, why not do what you just said? Find someone who's been through that and just figure it out. You're not having a new problem in real estate, trust me. Like,
here you are with us.
Oh, it's fun.
And you've become very good at problem solving, I'm sure, through the years of
by default
the academy. Yeah, by default. But you put yourself in that ring, which is not a lot of people would. Because from what I see, and this has been different from even when I started, because maybe I just wasn't into social media as much as I am now. But you see all these coaches on Instagram like putting out content and like join my class and join my class. But it's always a short-ended. They just get people in the door and then they forget about them.
No, they sell.
Yeah, and then they're like they paint the picture of, I always call it the Vegas nightclub, where like everything is these flashing lights and it's a big party. But they forget to actually tell people like, hey, if you're going to get into this business, it is difficult, it is hard, but we'll help you through this.
Yeah, I got a story for you. So there's a guy, again, I won't throw him under the bus. He was on my show. And I've been on his, and I've done seminars for his group until this happened. I said off air, like after we're done this show, we'll chat for a few seconds. I said, what do you do with your coaching clients? Do you need help? Like, can we do some JVing? He said, oh, I don't coach. He said, Chris, I'm really good marketer. And he told me the number of sales he does a year. It was a big number. It was like way bigger than us. And that's just from, he's a good marketer online. Everybody's getting marketed by him right now. And he said, after that, I don't care what they do. So they buy the product. And unfortunately, they go out and get frustrated. And then they find us, hopefully, or someone else, right? In the industry, there's a lot of good people. And then they get trained the right way. It's sad. But so we suck at marketing, I'll tell you. We're getting better. But we're not a marketer. We know how to do deals. So when the marketing catches up, maybe more people know about us.
I liked your marketing. I'll give you that feedback. I liked it.
Good deal.
I was on Instagram looking through all your stuff the other night.
Oh, that'd be my son-in-law then. I can take credit. I couldn't tell you how to get on.
Yeah, that's why Dan's here. I couldn't tell you how to get onto mine. Good. I couldn't tell you how long I couldn't reset my password for to get onto my own account.
Yeah.
And Dan was like, yeah, I was on that today. So Instagram marketing, not my thing. All right. So I wanted to touch more on
I think we got about 5 minutes left, just a heads up.
Oh, we only have 5 minutes?
Yeah.
All right.
He said he wanted to be done 10-2.
I said I noticed that 5 after, or 10-2. 10-2, my bad. Well then I just want to go into your book. That was kind of where I wanted to end it.
Okay.
Is this your one and only book, or is this, I feel like this is you've written more.
Yeah, we did Real Estate on Your Terms in 2017, and then we were just revising it and COVID hit, which was kind of good in hindsight. So we kept going and revised it pretty current. So that's the new edition that's out. Everybody, we set up a link for your tribe. I'll give you that in a second. So every listener can get it. And again, from a marketing standpoint, it's not, here's my free book and then put in money for shipping. We're going to ship it for free, right from this building. They'll get that book and they'll get Deal Structure Overtime, which was basically, if you go to YouTube, there's like, I don't know what it's up to. It's over 200, maybe 240 deals that we post every week, every Sunday. Deal Structure Sunday, it's called. So on there, there's like the deals, but there's not like behind the curtain, like the nuances like we were talking about. So Deal Structure Overtime goes more into that. Like what went on here and how did that happen? So we send those out for free. Just go to wickedsmartbooks.com/MVP and the numeric number 1, MVP 1.
Awesome. Yeah. And we're going to put that in the show notes too, because that behind the scenes thing would be very cool, because you get the concepts, and even me being in real estate and Dan being in real estate, the concepts you can get, but when it gets down to the actual application or the behind the scenes of how it's structured, right. That's where it gets very, very gray. And there's a lot of liability out there. It may not personally be to you because it's not on your name, like that kind of liability, but
no, it can create stress still if you don't do it right. Yeah.
Yeah, you're dealing with other people's lives, and it needs to be structured correctly, and you need to check your boxes and cross your T's, dot your I's.
Yep.
So that is important. So for you to take the second step and actually help these people through it rather than just market them, get them in the class, and then set them free, major kudos to you for that one.
I appreciate it. I appreciate the feedback.
That's awesome. But yeah, we will link that book up to the show notes to this one. And then we're also going to put the links to your website and your Instagram on there as well. So you don't need to say those. Is the Instagram the best way to get a hold of you? Or is it through the academy?
The team will get it if they can go there. If they want to call, like I would do free calls with people. It's all about, it's not a sales call. It's all about what the heck's blocking you. Like, what do you ideally want to do? And now we're a nice fit. And how does that work? Just go to smartrealestatecoach.com/action and they can set up a call. It's no charge.
Awesome. And with that call, do you deal with obviously current investors? Would you take calls from people that are like, hey, I want to get into real estate, but haven't started, don't know where to start?
Yeah, we do both. It's mostly, I honestly should know the number, but it's mostly newer people that come from corporate America and other that come to us. or they're looking for a franchise, or they're looking for a big building. Instead, they come and learn how to do this for life.
That's good. And because I like, with this whole podcast started with getting people interested in real estate, taking the next step, get out of your W-2, even if you like your W-2, to have some sort of
I love it if you do it,
investment, even if it's on the side.
Yeah.
So I'm glad to hear that you'll take on new investors as well,
Yeah.
people that are interested in the market.
Yeah.
Well, I will let you go. We'll end the show there.
Appreciate it.
We'll put that on the show notes, but it's been awesome talking to you, Chris.
You too, guys.
And I'm hoping we can get you back on.
I love an encore. We'll do it.
Awesome. Thanks a lot. I appreciate it.
Guys, appreciate it.